evening. My name is Thomas King, and this is my presentation of my behavior resource list for my class at Liberty University, Principles of Behavior Management, section B09. Today's focus is on resources that will assist you as an educator with rules and policies. If you are wondering what are the advantages, the disadvantages, or how you can practically implement rules and procedures into your classroom, this group of resources would be a great asset to you. My first type of resources are ones that you can access from the convenience of your own home, right from your laptop. The first website we will be discussing is Teacher Vision. Teacher Vision is a website dedicated to all things teaching. The website has everything a teacher could ever want, divided up by topics, grade levels. For behavior resource, it contains advice and information from veteran teachers that assist in classroom management. The site does have a monthly membership fee. The membership gives you access to all content that includes printouts, specifically for implementing rules and procedures. The next is the National Center of Intensive Interventions. The National Center of Intensive Interventions is funded by the U.S. Department of Education. The website is a free resource for teachers, which is great. It includes information and training on a variety of topics, including behavior management. Specifically to find information on rules and procedures, the website has a section called antecedent modifications, and you can find PDFs and download, and they actually even have training modules where they have videos and other resources to help train you in these areas. The next website is the Positive Behavioral Interventions and Supports. The Positive Behavioral Intervention and Supports, or as it's referred to as BPIS, was started in 1998 by the U.S. Department of Education. Unlike the previous resource, BPIS could be used as a school-wide resource. The idea is that this system is to give the entire school a positive set of moral standards instead of each educator giving a list of do-not rules to follow. For individual educators, the resource could be used on a smaller scale in their individual classroom. The site contains training tools and implementing BPIS for both the individual classroom and a school-wide approach. Our final website is Scholastic Inc. Scholastic began as a magazine in 1920. It's a great online resource for educators. The site contains articles and blogs from teachers that cover just about every topic associated with education. The website is user-friendly. If you just type in the top box that you want to look for classroom rules and procedures, they have nearly 50 resources that appear, and they all include blogs, articles, items for purchase associated with developing, implementing classroom rules and procedures. Now we will look at a few books that you can use to find out more information on rules and procedures. The first book is called Affirmative Classroom Management: How Do I Develop Effective Rules and Consequences in My School? This book was written by Richard Kerwin in 2013, is another resource for educators to use when developing behavior management plans for their classrooms. The book is relatively inexpensive and can be found for purchase online, even at the Liberty University online library. And this book is going to walk you through what Kerwin believes to be the three core components of a social contract. The chapters describe what rules are and how you can develop those on your own. He also describes responses to when rules are broken. The next book is Classroom Management: A Guide for Urban School Teachers. This book was written by Sean Israel and is directed towards urban school teachers. However, it can be applied for any educator. Chapter 4 specifically looks at how to develop classroom rules and policy. Israel opens the chapter by describing the need for students to take ownership of their education and behaviors, and he discusses the importance of classroom norms and routines. In the second half of the chapter, he discusses responses to inappropriate behaviors. The next book is Designing Effective Classroom Management. The author is Jason Harlocker, and he has worked as a professor, as an RTI consultant, classroom psychologist, and a researcher. This book is part of a series of books called the Classroom Strategies series. Chapter 2 of this book covers classroom rules and expectations. Harlocker does a good job of explaining and expanding on classroom rules. He describes how expectations are broad and that rules help us narrow down the broad expectations into appropriate actions. He described what he calls the event matrix. It describes appropriate behaviors for specific events that will likely occur in the classroom on a daily basis. Next, we have From Discipline to Culturally Responsive Engagement, 45 Classroom Management Strategies. Dr. Laura Pinto is a decorated researcher and educator. In her book, Dr. Pinto breaks down how to develop the classroom rules beginning in chapter 5 of her book. She describes in chapter 6 the importance of focusing on what is most important in order for teaching and learning to take place. In chapter 7, she continues by describing retroactive rules that come up throughout the school year, and she closes in chapter 8 by describing responses and consequences when rules aren't followed. Behavior and Classroom Management in the Multicultural Classroom. This book looks at an overview of behavior and classroom management. The goal of the text, described in the preface, is to assist teachers in creating a universal classroom management system. The text goes beyond classroom rules and procedures to discuss legal ramifications of behavior management and even discuss interactions with parents when issues do arise. Chapter 5 specifically discusses development of classroom rules and expectations. The author emphasized the importance of keeping your classroom rules concise so that students can easily remember them. Our next book is The ABCs of Classroom Management, an A to Z sampler for designing your learning community. Dr. Pamela Ertel has over 30 years experience in education. Her book is laid out like an encyclopedia. Each chapter is simply a letter of the alphabet, and the sub-chapters are all in alphabetical order. To learn about classroom rules, simply go to chapter R, and you'll find other resources there that are all titled under the letter R. Dr. Ertel stresses keeping rules simple and short. She also discusses the importance of keeping rules positive and avoiding words like can't and don't. Although it is important to keep rules positive, she does state that there is value in describing out consequences associated with inappropriate behaviors. Teaching Without Disruption in the Secondary School, a Practical Approach to Managing Pupil Behavior. The author, Roland Chaplin, has a history working in educational psychology and as an educational consultant. In chapter 8 of his book, Chaplin focuses on classroom rules and expectations. Chaplin discusses the benefit of rules on the student's emotional and psychological growth. In direct opposition to a book that we will discuss later, which is Dr. Bluestein's book, Chaplin believes it is essential for the teacher to set themselves as the controlling force in the classroom. He describes inappropriate behaviors by the student as their attempt to overthrow that control. Teaching behavioral managing classroom through effective teaching. Dr. Terrence Scott is a professor at Louisville and has won awards for his research on student behavior. The book is written in the first person. It is as if Dr. Scott is telling us a story, so much to the point that there's actually back and forth dialogue where he's having conversations with a colleague. Dr. Scott discusses classroom rules and policies in chapter 2, and later in the book, he discusses the psychology behind student behavior. Your first year, how to survive and thrive as a new teacher. The author of the texts are currently employed teachers. Dr. Todd Whitaker has written 40 books, including a national bestseller. This book is designed for first-year educators. However, it's a great resource for any teachers, no matter where you are. It's always a great one you can review during the summer to prepare for your next year. Chapter 3 of this book describes classroom rules. The author discusses the importance of the rules being true to your personal philosophy. The reason the author stresses this point is because you will have to enforce whatever rules that you're going to actually put into place. 50 ways to improve student behavior, simple solutions to complex challenges. The author of this book provides ready-to-use practical applications in behavioral management. The first point they address in chapter 3 is the distinction between disciplinary challenges and disciplinary problems. They discuss the importance of creating clear and defined rules and procedures, and the authors actually declare that creating this type of rule will eliminate disciplinary problems, because they describe disciplinary problems as things that are reoccurring as opposed to challenges that will just come up occasionally. Our next book is Walking with God in the Classroom, a Christian Approach to Learning and Teaching. This text is actually one that's already in my bookshelf from previous courses here at Liberty University. In chapter 6, Harold von Brumlin describes how to set your classroom expectations. He uses Psalms 19:7 through 11 as his foundation for setting classroom rules. This verse states, "The law of the Lord is perfect, refreshing the soul. The statutes of the Lord are trustworthy, making wise the simple. The precepts of the Lord are right, giving joy to the heart. The commands of the Lord are radiant, giving light to the eyes. The fear of the Lord is pure, enduring forever. The decrees of the Lord are firm, and all of them are righteous. They are more precious than gold, than much pure gold. They are sweeter than honey from the honeycomb. By them your servant is warned. In keeping them there is great reward." Van Brumlin emphasizes that prevention is the best form of classroom management. After giving tips of how to set clear and concise rules, he also reminds that when inappropriate behavior occurs, we should reflect on Psalms 13:24 and Revelations 3:19 to remind us how we should correct students with love. Managing 21st century classrooms. How do I avoid ineffective classroom management practices? This book is written by Dr. Jane Bluestein, and she's an award-winning author. In her book, Dr. Bluestein discusses the shifting culture of our young people today. She discusses how the rapid change in students' lives has caused the need for educational management practices to shift as well. Dr. Bluestein describes 7 misconceptions about education management, one of which is the misconception that classroom rules are important to generate better classroom behavior. This resource is quite different from the rest that we've already stated. However, I would consider a beneficial one to help educators to get out of their traditional form of thinking and see things from a different lens viewpoint. Thank you for your time. If you have any questions or would like a list of these resources to assist you in developing or implementing your classroom rules and policies, please feel free to speak with me after, or if you want to shoot me an email, I'd love to talk with you more about this information.